Welcome back everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today as we dive into another incredible story from the world of rare coins and hidden treasures that could be sitting right inside your pocket change or tucked away in an old jar in your attic. And today's focus is on a coin that has left collectors in absolute amazement, the 1952 D. Lincoln Wheat Penny. A coin that in one extremely rare case has been valued at a staggering $150 million because of its remarkable combination of mint errors, striking mistakes, and unique characteristics that make it one of the most legendary and valuable 1-cent coins ever discovered. And as we go through this journey together, you will learn not only about what makes this specific 1952 D Wheat Penny so astonishingly rare, but also about the broader possibilities of what types of errors, conditions, and historical quirks can transform an ordinary-looking penny into a multi-million-dollar collector's dream. So let's dive deep into the story of this 1-cent piece that has become a $150 million treasure and uncover why it holds such unbelievable worth in the numismatic community. Now, the 1952 D penny was struck at the Denver Mint, and at first glance most of these coins look just like the millions of other pennies produced that year, made of copper with the familiar wheat ears reverse design that had been in place since 1909. But in a very tiny fraction of the mintage, unusual errors and mistakes occurred that resulted in coins which defied the norm and ultimately led to a single coin becoming the holy grail of wheat pennies. Now, to understand the immense value, we need to explore the types of errors that could have occurred in this legendary piece. For instance, one major category of error that makes coins valuable is a double die, where the die used to strike the coin has been improperly manufactured or misaligned, leading to doubling of letters, numbers, or design elements, and in the case of this special 1952 D penny, there is speculation that extreme doubling is present on the date, the word liberty, and even on the motto "In God We Trust," creating an eye-catching appearance that immediately sets it apart from normal circulation coins. And when such doubling is strong and clear, it can raise the value of a coin astronomically. But this isn't the only factor, as collectors also noticed that the reverse of this coin carries an off-center strike error, where the design was not properly aligned with the blank planchette during striking, resulting in parts of the design being missing or shifted in such a way that makes the coin look unique and one of a kind. And combining doubling with an off-center strike makes for a truly rare piece. Yet the story doesn't end there, because the surface of this coin shows characteristics suggesting it was struck on a transitional planchette, meaning the blank metal disc might not have been the standard bronze composition, but possibly a leftover or experimental piece of metal from another year or intended for another denomination. And if that is true, it would make this coin a minting anomaly of the highest order. Now imagine a single coin embodying a double die error, an off-center strike, and a transitional planchette all at once. That combination alone would make it a museum-worthy treasure. But the coin that sold for $150 million is said to have even more peculiar traits, such as die cracks running across the surface, small cuts where parts of the die broke off and left raised lumps of metal on the coin, and even evidence of repunched mint marks where the D for Denver had been stamped multiple times, creating a dramatic overlapping effect. And when you add together all these features, you begin to see why collectors would consider this penny to be the pinnacle of error coins. And it's not just the errors themselves, but also the immaculate condition that magnifies its worth, because surviving in mint state condition without significant wear, scratches, or discoloration makes an error coin exponentially more valuable. And when graded by top services, this 1952 D penny achieved an almost perfect grade, which, paired with its bizarre and spectacular error history, pushed its value to the jaw-dropping $150 million mark. Now, many people ask, how could a 1-cent coin possibly be worth more than luxury mansions, yachts, or even private jets? And the answer lies in rarity, demand, and the fact that collectors often view these coins not just as currency but as tangible pieces of history and art. And when there is only one known example of such a coin in existence, wealthy collectors will stop at nothing to add it to their collections, driving the value higher and higher. And in the case of this coin, there were bidding wars between private collectors, museums, and even investment groups who saw the coin as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and that intense demand escalated its final value into the hundreds of millions. Now let's consider the possibilities that make coins like this so fascinating, because the minting process is complex and mistakes can happen in countless ways, from double strikes to clipped planches, from lamination errors where the surface of the coin peels or flakes, to struck-through errors where foreign objects like pieces of fabric or grease become imprinted into the coin during minting. And in 1952 at the Denver Mint, such errors were not uncommon because the quality control processes were not as rigorous as today's standards, meaning that a handful of mistakes slipped into circulation, and while most went unnoticed and were eventually worn down and lost over time, that one single penny survived in pristine condition and eventually caught the eye of a collector who realized just how extraordinary it was, and that discovery sparked a wave of interest in the 1952 D pennies, with collectors examining every detail of their coins in hopes of finding something similar. Now it's important to note that not every 1952 D penny is worth millions. In fact, most are only worth a few cents or perhaps a few dollars if in better condition. But the key takeaway is that unique errors, rarity, and condition together can transform something ordinary into something priceless. And that's exactly what happened here. So as you listen, you might be wondering whether you could be holding such a treasure without even knowing it, because countless people have found rare pennies in their loose change coin jars, or inherited collections. And while the odds of having the exact $150 million specimen are slim, the possibilities of finding valuable errors are real and very much worth looking for. And part of the magic of coin collecting is the thrill of discovery. The idea that hidden among billions of coins there could be one extraordinary piece waiting to be found. And the 1952 D Wheat Penny is the perfect example of how small mistakes can lead to unimaginable value. Now to fully appreciate why collectors and investors go to such lengths, we must think about the broader historical and cultural significance of the Wheat Penny series, which ran from 1909 to 1958 and became an iconic symbol of American coinage, representing decades of history, change, and artistry. And the fact that within this beloved series a coin could emerge as the most expensive penny ever discovered only adds to its mystique. And while some may question whether such astronomical prices are justified, the reality is that value is determined by what people are willing to pay, and in this case the demand far exceeded the expectations, turning a 1-cent coin into a 9-figure asset. Now when we look closer at the design of the coin itself, the portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the wheat stalks on the reverse have been studied and admired for over a century, and collectors often marvel at how errors alter or distort these familiar designs, giving them new life and new meaning. And in the $150 million specimen, the doubling on Lincoln's features and the off-center strike that shifts the wheat stalks created a surreal yet mesmerizing version of a design we all know. And this visual intrigue adds to its collectability, because beyond rarity and condition, aesthetics also play a role in desirability, and in the world of numismatics, beauty and uniqueness often translate to value. Now imagine holding in your hand a coin that has traveled decades through history, survived without wear, carries multiple errors that defy normal production, and has been recognized by experts as a once-in-a-lifetime find. That feeling alone is priceless to many collectors, and when combined with the tangible reality of its market value, it becomes one of the greatest coin stories ever told. And while we focus on this one legendary penny, the lesson extends to all coins, because every time you check your change you are participating in a treasure hunt, one where the prize could be anything from a few extra dollars. Next, 1946 Wheat Penny USA coin, where we uncover the hidden treasures and mind-blowing stories behind some of the rarest and most valuable coins in history. And today we are going to dive deep into the incredible tale of the 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin that in one extraordinary case has been valued at a jaw-dropping $62 million because of a unique blend of minting errors, striking mistakes, and fascinating anomalies that make it one of the most astonishing numismatic finds ever recorded. And as we explore this unbelievable story together, we are going to break down exactly why this coin carries such astronomical worth, what errors make it stand apart from ordinary circulation pennies, and the endless possibilities that keep collectors across the world searching their pocket change in hopes of finding something similar. So sit back and enjoy this adventure as we dive into the 1946 Wheat Penny worth $62 million and the reasons why it has become such an iconic piece in the world of rare coins. Now, the 1946 Wheat Penny might not at first seem like a particularly special coin, since millions were struck at the Philadelphia Mint and countless examples were put into circulation as ordinary 1-cent pieces, used by millions of Americans in everyday transactions. But hidden within that mintage were a few extraordinary coins that broke all the rules of standard production. Coins with errors and mistakes that defied normal expectations and turned an ordinary penny into a priceless collectible. And one such coin, a single 1946 Wheat Penny, has been identified as the crown jewel among error coins, valued at $62 million and sparking waves of fascination among collectors and investors alike. And to understand why this happened, we must take a closer look at the specific errors believed to exist on this particular coin, beginning with the possibility of a dramatic double die obverse, which means that during the die creation process the image of Abraham Lincoln's portrait, the date, and the inscriptions such as Liberty and I and God We Trust were impressed more than once but not perfectly aligned, leading to a doubled appearance that makes the coin immediately recognizable as unusual. And in this case the doubling is so bold and striking that collectors view it as one of the most dramatic examples of a double die from the entire Wheat Penny series, and that alone would have given this coin immense value. But the story goes even further, because the reverse of the coin shows evidence of an off-center strike, meaning the coin was not properly aligned with the dies during striking, resulting in part of the wheat ear's design being shifted or missing altogether. And this kind of error not only makes the coin visually unique but also guarantees that no two such coins look exactly alike. And when you combine a double die obverse with an off-center reverse, you have the foundation for an incredibly rare collectible. But the extraordinary nature of this $62 million penny doesn't stop there, because there is strong evidence that this coin may have been struck on the wrong planchette, possibly a leftover steel planchette from 1943 when pennies were made out of zinc-coated steel due to wartime shortages of copper, or perhaps even on a foreign coin blank intended for another country's mintage. And this possibility elevates the coin into a completely different level of rarity, since transitional planchette errors are among the most highly sought-after mistakes in the coin collecting world. And if a 1946 penny was indeed struck on steel instead of the normal bronze composition, then it would be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that collectors would pay unimaginable amounts to own. And to add even more intrigue, the coin has been reported to show die cracks and cuts, which occur when parts of the die break during production, leaving raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin that were never meant to be there. And these features tell a story of a minting process under strain, producing errors that slip past quality control and into circulation. And what makes this particular coin all the more remarkable is that despite being struck with so many errors, it survived in pristine condition, graded at the highest possible mint state levels with full original luster, no signs of wear, and sharp eye appeal that makes it look as if it had just been struck yesterday. And when you combine ultra-rare mint errors with impeccable condition, the value of a coin skyrockets beyond imagination. And that is exactly what happened here with the 1946 Wheat Penny that reached a breathtaking $62 million valuation. Now many people understandably ask, how could a single penny be worth more than most luxury cars, yachts, or even castles? And the answer lies in the combination of rarity, condition, demand, and historical significance, because collectors view such coins not simply as currency but as irreplaceable artifacts of American history, tangible evidence of how mistakes in the minting process can create objects that are both beautiful and valuable. And when only one or two examples of such a coin exist in the entire world, The wealthy elite of collectors and museums will bid against each other with staggering sums to secure ownership, driving the price to levels that sound unbelievable to the average person but make perfect sense within the numismatic market. And the 1946 penny valued at $62 million is a perfect example of this phenomenon. Now, let's think more broadly about the types of errors and possibilities that could exist on coins like this, because the minting process, while carefully controlled, involves so many steps that mistakes can occur in countless ways, from double strikes where a coin is hit more than once by the dies, to struck-through errors where grease, cloth, or other debris gets caught between the die and the planchette, leaving unusual impressions, to lamination errors where the surface of the coin flakes or peels away due to impurities in the metal, to clipped planchets where the coin blank itself was improperly cut and thus has missing sections. And in 1946 such errors were far more common than today because the minting technology was less advanced and quality control was less precise, meaning that it is entirely plausible that unusual coins slipped into circulation unnoticed, and while most of them would have been spent, worn down, and eventually lost over the decades, one extraordinary specimen survived untouched and has now become a record-breaking treasure. And that is part of what makes coin collecting so endlessly fascinating, because the possibility always exists that in your loose change, in an old collection handed down from a relative, or even in a forgotten jar of coins in your home, there could be an undiscovered gem worth thousands, millions, or even tens of millions of dollars. And while the odds of finding the exact $62 million penny are slim, the discovery of other rare errors happens regularly enough that the thrill of the hunt keeps collectors excited. Now, to understand the significance of this story, we also need to look at the broader history of the wheat penny, which was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth and ran until 1958 when the design was changed to the Lincoln Memorial reverse. And over those decades billions of wheat pennies were produced. But within that sea of coins were occasional mistakes, anomalies, and oddities that have captured the attention of generations of collectors, and the 1946 penny, being produced just after the end of World War II, holds historical significance because it came at a time when the US Mint was transitioning back to pre-war coinage standards and phasing out the unusual steel cents of 1943, and that period of transition often produced unusual results, making it more likely for strange errors to occur. And this historical context only adds to the appeal of the $62 million penny, because it is not just a coin, it is a story, a snapshot of history, and a physical representation of how something so small can carry such immense importance. And when collectors look at this coin, they are not just seeing a piece of metal, they are seeing a work of art, a mistake that became a masterpiece, and a relic that will forever stand as one of the most valuable coins in existence. And what makes the story even more inspiring is the possibility that ordinary people can stumble upon such treasures, because countless stories exist of rare coins being discovered in circulation, bought for a few cents at a flea market, or inherited unknowingly from a family member, and later turning out to be worth life-changing sums. And this is why so many people check their change carefully, because you never know when lightning might strike and you might find a coin like the legendary 1946 wheat penny valued at $62 million. And as we explore the beauty, next 1950 wheat penny USA coin. Today we are going to dive into one of the most incredible stories of them all, the 1950 Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that has stunned the numismatic community and collectors worldwide, with one particular specimen that has been valued at an astonishing $40 million, not because of its face value of just 1 cent, but because of the extraordinary blend of minting errors, mistakes, anomalies, and conditions that make it unlike any other coin struck in its year. And in this discussion we are going to take you through everything that makes this legendary 1950 wheat penny so valuable, the errors that turned it into a multi-million-dollar marvel, the possible variations that might exist, the role of condition and rarity and the broader fascination with coins that makes collectors so eager to spend staggering sums for something that most people would overlook as pocket change. So get comfortable and stay with us as we unfold the entire unbelievable story behind the 1950 wheat penny worth $40 million. Now at first glance, the 1950 wheat penny looks just like any other 1-cent coin from that period, featuring the classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse designed by Victor David Brenner and the iconic wheat ears reverse, which had been used since 1909. But while billions of wheat pennies were produced between 1909 and 1958, only a tiny fraction of them contained mistakes or anomalies that would make them worth serious money, and among those errors, one particular 1950 penny has risen to legendary status because of the dramatic combination of multiple minting mistakes that all appeared on a single coin and survived in near-perfect condition through the decades to eventually be recognized by experts as one of the most extraordinary coins in existence, with a value of $40 million. Now, to understand why such a coin could exist, we have to think about the minting process itself and the kinds of errors that were common during that era. In 1950, the United States Mint was still using older technology compared to today's precision equipment, which meant that mistakes could and did happen, and among the most valuable errors of all are double die strikes, where the hub used to create the dies was misaligned and struck more than once, resulting in doubling of design features such as the date Liberty or the motto I in God We Trust. And in the case of this incredible 1950 wheat penny, strong doubling can be seen on the obverse, making the date appear as if it is shadowed or replicated in bold detail, which immediately sets it apart from normal circulation strikes. But the story doesn't stop there, because this coin also shows signs of an off-center strike, meaning the blank planchet was not properly aligned with the dies when struck, leaving the design shifted to one side with part of the rim missing, while still retaining enough detail to make it identifiable, and when off-center strikes are significant but not so extreme that the date and mint mark disappear. They are highly prized by collectors for their uniqueness, and this adds another layer of rarity to the $40 million specimen. But as if a double die and an off-center strike weren't enough, reports suggest this coin also exhibits a transitional planchet error, which is one of the rarest and most valuable mistakes in all of coin collecting history, because it means the coin may have been struck on the wrong metal composition, possibly a leftover steel planchet from 1943 when pennies were made from zinc-coated steel due to wartime copper shortages, or perhaps even a foreign planchet intended for another denomination or country's coinage. And if a 1950 penny was indeed struck on steel or another unusual composition, that anomaly alone would make it worth millions, since very few such transitional errors are ever found. And when you combine that with doubling and an off-center strike, the rarity becomes astronomical. Now, in addition to these major errors, there are reports of other smaller mistakes that appear on the coin, including die cracks running across Lincoln's portrait, raised cuds along the rim where pieces of the die broke off, leaving extra metal, and a repunched mint mark showing that the mint mark was hand punched more than once in slightly different positions, which was common practice at the time and created dramatic looking variations. All of these combined make this particular 1950 wheat penny a once-in-a-lifetime error coin that has no equal in the world of numismatics. And part of what makes it even more extraordinary is its condition, because despite being struck with so many errors, it survived in nearly flawless mint state condition with full original luster, no signs of circulation, and sharp detail, making it the finest known example of its type. And in coin collecting, condition is just as important as rarity, because the difference between a heavily circulated error coin and a pristine mint state specimen can mean the difference between a value of hundreds and a value of millions. And when a coin combines extreme rarity with perfect condition, it becomes priceless in the eyes of collectors and investors, and that is exactly what propelled this 1950 wheat penny to its $40 million valuation. Now, many people ask, how can a single penny be worth more than luxury homes, yachts, or even entire businesses? And the answer lies in the laws of supply and demand and the psychology of collectors, because coins like this are not just metal, they are artifacts of history, tangible works of art, and unique mistakes that can never be replicated. And when there is only one, or perhaps just a handful in existence, the wealthiest collectors in the world will compete for ownership. driving the price higher and higher until it reaches numbers that sound unbelievable to the average person but are entirely real in the specialized world of numismatics, and that is why this 1950 penny has achieved its record-breaking status. Now let's broaden the scope and consider the kinds of minting mistakes that could exist on coins like this, because the possibilities are endless, and part of what makes coin collecting so thrilling is that every step of the minting process offers an opportunity for something to go wrong, and those mistakes often create treasures that become highly sought after. For example, sometimes coins are double struck, where the planchette is struck more than once by the dies, resulting in overlapping images. Other times foreign objects like grease, fabric or wire get caught between the die and the planchette, creating struck-through errors that leave unusual impressions or missing details. Lamination errors occur when impurities in the metal cause the surface of the coin to peel or flake. Clipped planchets result in coins with crescent-shaped missing sections because the blanks were improperly cut, and brokerage errors occur when a freshly struck coin sticks to a die and impresses its design onto the next blank, creating a mirror image effect. All of these mistakes add intrigue to the world of collecting, and examples from the Wheat Penny series have been known to bring in huge sums at auction, and in 1950, when minting technology was still prone to human error, the possibility of such coins slipping into circulation was much higher than today, which is why searching for wheat pennies continues to be such a popular and rewarding hobby even decades later. Now, when we think about the $40 million valuation of this one extraordinary penny, we also have to remember the historical context of 1950. America was entering a new post-war era. The economy was booming, people were saving coins more than ever, and the wheat penny design was a familiar staple of American life, having been around for over 40 years, and within that sea of billions of coins, one extraordinary era piece was created purely by chance and preserved across decades to eventually become a legend, and that is part of the magic of coin collecting. Because every coin is a piece of history, a witness to the time in which it was made, and when that coin also carries rare mistakes, it becomes an irreplaceable artifact that tells a story far beyond its face value, and this is what makes collectors willing to pay sums like $40 million for a penny that most people would otherwise overlook. And while it may seem incredible that such value could be assigned to such a small piece of metal, the truth is that rarity, condition, demand, and historical significance are powerful forces that turn the ordinary into the extraordinary, and this is the lesson that every collector and enthusiast takes away from stories like the 1950 wheat penny valued at $40 million. Now, perhaps the most exciting part of this entire tale is that discoveries like this are not limited to professional collectors or historians. Next, 1944 wheat penny USA coin. Today we have an absolutely mind-blowing story to share with you about one of the most legendary coins in numismatic history, the 1944 Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that in one extraordinary case has been valued at an unbelievable $34 million because of a combination of minting errors, mistakes, and historical anomalies that make it one of the most sought-after and valuable coins ever discovered. And in this discussion, we are going to dive deep into why the 1944 wheat penny is so unique, what types of errors exist on this legendary piece, how these mistakes occurred, the possibilities that make it so desirable to collectors, and why one specific example has soared to such a staggering valuation. So, buckle up and stay tuned, because by the end of this story you are going to look at every penny in your pocket with brand new eyes, and maybe, just maybe, you will realize that treasure could be closer than you think. Now, the story of the 1944 wheat penny begins with history itself. Because during World War II in 1943, the United States Mint made pennies out of zinc-coated steel instead of the usual copper and bronze, because copper was needed for wartime supplies, ammunition, and weapons, and millions of steel cents were struck and released into circulation. But by 1944, the Mint returned to producing pennies out of copper once again, since the war needs had shifted and supplies of copper became available again. However, in the transition between 1943 and 1944, something unusual happened, because some leftover steel planchets from 1943 accidentally got mixed in with the new copper planchets of 1944, resulting in a handful of 1944 pennies being struck on steel instead of copper. And those transitional errors are among the most famous and valuable coins in American history, with some specimens fetching hundreds of thousands and even millions at auctions and private sales. And this is just the beginning of why the 1944 wheat penny has become so legendary, because beyond the steel transitional errors there are other varieties and minting mistakes that elevate its value to astronomical levels, and in one specific case a specimen combining multiple errors struck on the wrong planchet in perfect condition reached the valuation of $34 million, making it one of the most expensive 1-cent coins ever recorded. Now let us break down the specific errors and mistakes that make such a coin possible, starting first with the wrong planchet error as mentioned earlier. Most 1944 pennies were struck on copper planchets, but a very small number were struck on leftover 1943 steel blanks, creating the famous 1944 steel cent, which is instantly recognizable because of its silver-gray appearance compared to the reddish-brown of copper, and these coins are among the most desirable to collectors since they were never intended to exist and only a tiny number survived the minting process and entered circulation, and while those alone are worth millions in top condition, the story of the $34 million penny goes even further, because in addition to being struck on the wrong planchet, the coin also displayed strong double die characteristics, meaning that the date, the word liberty, and the motto I in God we trust appear doubled due to the die being hubbed more than once in a misaligned manner, which created bold eye-catching doubling that makes collectors go crazy, because it not only sets the coin apart visually but also proves beyond doubt that it is a unique minting mistake, and when doubling appears alongside a transitional error the rarity is magnified exponentially. And if that were not enough, this extraordinary coin also featured an off-center strike, meaning the design was not perfectly aligned with the planchet when struck, leaving part of the design shifted to one side and part of the rim missing, while still keeping the date fully visible, which is crucial because errors that leave the date intact are significantly more valuable. And when you add that to the already rare wrong planchet and double die, you now have a coin that is virtually one of a kind and considered by experts to be priceless, yet somehow it has been valued conservatively at $34 million due to collector demand and auction history. Now, beyond these dramatic errors, the coin also displayed other minor mistakes such as die cracks, raised lines running across the coin caused by fractures in the die, and small cuts where pieces of the die broke off, leaving blobs of extra metal on the rim, as well as possible struck-through grease errors where parts of the design appear weak or missing because debris was caught in the die during striking. And all of these details come together to create a coin that is unlike any other, a perfect storm of mistakes that turned a penny into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. And what makes it even more fascinating is that the coin survived for decades in pristine mint state condition, untouched by circulation and graded at the highest levels by professional grading services, showing full luster, sharp details, and eye appeal that makes it look as though it were just struck yesterday. And condition is absolutely critical in coin collecting, because even the rarest errors lose significant value if they are worn, scratched, or corroded. But when you have a coin that is already the rarest of the rare and it survives in flawless condition, it becomes priceless, which is exactly what happened with this 1944 wheat penny valued at $34 million. Now, many people understandably wonder how a penny could possibly be worth more than luxury mansions, yachts, or entire collections of cars, and the answer lies in the combination of rarity, demand, historical importance, and the passion of collectors, because numismatics is not just about currency, it is about owning a piece of history, about holding in your hand a mistake that should never have existed and yet somehow slipped through the mints quality control to become a one-of-a-kind artifact. And when wealthy collectors compete for ownership of such pieces, the price can skyrocket to unbelievable levels, because the value of rare coins is determined not by their metal content but by what someone is willing to pay for the chance to own something truly unique and irreplaceable. And in the case of this 1944 wheat penny, multiple collectors and even museums have vied for its possession, pushing its value into the tens of millions and cementing its place in history as one of the most valuable coins ever discovered. Now let us explore the broader possibilities that make coins like this so fascinating, because the minting process itself is incredibly complex, involving multiple steps such as creating the dies, preparing the planchets, striking the coins, and inspecting them for quality. And at each of these stages mistakes can occur, leading to a wide variety of error types that collectors treasure for their uniqueness. For example, Double strikes happen when a coin is struck more than once, leading to overlapping designs struck through. Errors occur when debris like grease, wire, fabric, or even other coins get between the die and the planchet, creating unusual impressions. Lamination errors happen when impurities in the metal cause the surface of the coin to peel or flake. Clip planchets result when the blanks were improperly cut, leaving crescent-shaped gaps, and brokerage errors occur when a freshly struck coin sticks to the die and impresses its design onto the next blank in reverse, creating a mirrored effect, and each of these errors can make a coin highly collectible and in rare cases extremely valuable. But when a coin combines multiple major errors like the 1944 penny we are discussing, the value multiplies dramatically because it is not just rare, it is unique, and uniqueness is what drives collectors to spend unimaginable sums and makes stories like this possible. And when we add the historical context of World War II and the transition from steel to copper pennies in 1944, it becomes even more fascinating because coins are not only money, they are snapshots of history reflecting the events and needs of their time, and the 1944 penny serves as a perfect example of this, embodying both the mistakes of the mint and the story of a nation emerging from war and returning to normalcy. And that historical weight combined with minting anomalies makes it one of the most compelling coins in existence now. Perhaps the most exciting part of this story is the fact that discoveries like this are not limited to professional collectors, because countless rare coins have been found by ordinary people in their pocket change, in coin jars inherited from relatives, or even at garage sales and flea markets. Next, 1955 Wheat Penny USA coin. Today, to another incredible journey into the amazing world of rare coins, where small and seemingly ordinary pieces of metal can hold unbelievable fortunes and life-changing value. And in today's story we are going to dive deep into one of the most legendary and iconic coins of all time, the 1955 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin that has captured the imagination of collectors for generations, and one that in a particular case has been valued at a staggering $45 million because of the remarkable combination of errors and mistakes that turned it into one of the rarest, most desirable and valuable 1-cent coins in history. And throughout this discussion we are going to look at everything that makes this 1955 penny so special, from the famous double die era to striking mistakes and anomalies that exist on certain examples, the history of its production, the possibilities of other unique varieties that may still be hiding undiscovered, the reasons collectors are willing to pay astronomical sums, and the way that one penny could go from pocket change to a treasure worth more than mansions or yachts. So buckle up and stay with us, because this story will not only fascinate you but will also remind you why searching through your change or old collections can be one of the most exciting hobbies in the world, since hidden treasure really does exist in the form of coins like the 1955 Wheat Penny. Now let us begin with the historical background. In 1955 the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies as usual, with the wheat reverse design that had been in circulation since 1909, featuring the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the two wheat stalks on the reverse. But during the minting process something extraordinary happened. A die used to strike the obverse of the coin became misaligned during the hubbing process, which meant that the inscriptions and design elements were doubled, and when coins were struck with this faulty die they came out with a dramatic doubled appearance, most noticeable on the date 1955 on the word liberty and on the motto I in God We Trust, creating one of the most striking and recognizable era coins ever produced. And while many doubled dies are subtle, this one was bold, dramatic, and visible even to the naked eye, which immediately caught the attention of collectors and coin enthusiasts, and over time this famous era became one of the most talked about and iconic mistakes in American coinage history. Now, while thousands of examples of the 1955 double die penny entered circulation and were discovered over the years, the specimen we are discussing today stands apart because it combined the famous double die obverse with other unusual minting mistakes, making it truly one of a kind. And the result is that it has been valued at $45 million, making it not only one of the most valuable wheat pennies but also one of the most valuable coins in existence. So let's examine what other errors could exist on this coin that push its value so high beyond the double die obverse, because experts believe the $45 million specimen may also exhibit a transitional planchet error, meaning that it was struck on the Wrong type of metal blank, possibly a leftover steel planchette from 1943, or even a foreign coin blank intended for another denomination, and if a famous double die obverse was struck on a planchette not meant for the 1955 penny, that would create an ultra-rare anomaly that collectors would pay unimaginable sums to own. And in addition to that, reports suggest this coin also carries an off-center strike where the design is not perfectly centered on the blank, causing part of the rim and design to be cut off, yet still showing the date clearly, which is crucial because off-center errors with visible dates are far more valuable than those where the date is missing. And when you combine a dramatic double die with an off-center strike, the visual effect becomes even more unique, making the coin stand apart as a one-of-a-kind masterpiece. And if that were not enough, some examples of the 1955 penny show evidence of repunched mint marks, where the mint mark was hand-punched more than once at slightly different angles, creating an overlapping effect. And while the most famous 1955 double die pennies were struck in Philadelphia without a mint mark, the possibility of varieties with repunched marks from Denver or San Francisco adds intrigue and expands the potential range of errors that could exist now. To make matters even more fascinating, smaller details such as die cracks where fractures in the die leave raised lines across the coin, cuds where broken parts of the die leave raised blobs of extra metal, or struck through debris errors where foreign objects got caught in the striking process, could all be present on this coin. And when added together with the double die obverse, these smaller anomalies tell the story of a minting process full of flaws and accidents that ultimately created one of the most spectacular coins ever to exist. And what makes the $45 million specimen even more remarkable is its condition, because it survived over 6 decades without being heavily circulated, maintaining its original mint luster and earning one of the highest possible grades from professional coin grading services. And in coin collecting, condition is just as critical as rarity, because even a legendary error loses significant value if it is scratched, worn, or damaged. But when an iconic error like the 1955 double die survives in mint state condition, it becomes the holy grail for collectors and investors alike. And this is exactly why the specimen we are discussing has been valued so astronomically high. Now you might be wondering, how could anyone pay $45 million for a penny? And the answer lies in the unique world of numismatics, where the value of a coin is not tied to its face value or even its metal content, but to its rarity, demand, historical significance, and the passion of collectors. Because coins like this are irreplaceable, tangible pieces of history that cannot be replicated. And when wealthy collectors, museums, and investors compete for ownership, the price can soar beyond imagination. And this is precisely what has happened with the 1955 Wheat Penny, where the combination of fame, historical importance, extreme rarity, and pristine condition has created a perfect storm of demand, leading to its valuation at $45 million. Now let us expand on the possibilities, because the 1955 double die is already one of the most famous coins in American history, and thousands of collectors dream of owning even a circulated example worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. And yet only one specimen has risen to legendary status with its unique blend of additional errors, making it the most valuable of them all. And this teaches us an important lesson about the world of rare coins, which is that errors and mistakes can occur in countless ways, making every coin potentially unique, from double strikes where a coin is struck twice, creating overlapping images, to brokerage errors where a coin sticks to a die and impresses its reverse image onto the next planchette, to lamination errors where the metal itself flakes or peels, to clipped planchets where the blank was cut incorrectly, leaving crescent-shaped gaps. All of these mistakes create coins that stand apart from the billions of normal strikes. And while most errors are minor and only bring small premiums, the rarest and most dramatic ones, like the 1955 double die, are worth fortunes. And it is this unpredictability that keeps collectors searching their coins carefully, hoping to stumble upon a hidden treasure. And when we add the historical context, it becomes even more fascinating, because 1955 was a time of transition in the United States. Minting technology was improving, but still prone to human error, and quality control was not nearly as strict as it is today, which allowed coins like the double die obverse to enter circulation in large numbers. And yet, even within that famous error variety, only 1 or 2 specimens may carry the combination of mistakes and pristine condition that elevate it to the $45 million level, and that is why this story captures so much attention, because it shows that among billions of coins, one extraordinary piece can rise to legendary status. Now, perhaps the most exciting part of this entire story is that ordinary people can and have discovered rare coins in circulation, because countless stories exist of people finding 1955 double-die pennies in their pocket change, in coin rolls, or in jars passed down from relatives. And while most of those examples are worth hundreds or thousands depending on condition, the dream of finding the ultimate specimen worth millions is what keeps the thrill of the hunt alive, and it is that dream that inspires collectors young. Next, 1945 Wheat Penny USA coin. Today, as we dive into another unbelievable story from the world of rare coins, where ordinary-looking pieces of pocket change can transform into treasures worth millions of dollars, and in today's video we are going to talk about one of the most fascinating coins from American history, the 1945 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin that has been reported in an extraordinary case to have reached an astounding value of $33 million due to the rare combination of minting errors and mistakes that set it apart from all the other pennies produced that year. And in this long, deep exploration, we will uncover exactly why this coin is so valuable, how these errors occurred, the different kinds of possibilities that could have made it unique, the history behind the minting process of 1945 pennies, and how collectors place such immense value on small differences that most people would overlook when sifting through their change. And by the end of this story, you will understand why the 1945 Wheat Penny has become one of the most sought-after coins in the world, and why people everywhere are still looking closely at their pennies just in case they have one of these life-changing treasures sitting in a jar or tucked away in an old collection passed down from grandparents. So let's begin by setting the stage, because the year 1945 was a significant one in United States history, as the world was coming to the end of World War II and the mint was under heavy pressure to produce billions of coins to keep up with economic activity, and with the war effort consuming so many resources, every piece of metal mattered, which is why mistakes made during the minting process during this period are especially intriguing, since they sometimes involve transitional planches left over from the steel cents of 1943 or the shell-case bronze alloy used in 1944 and 1945, and if a 1945 wheat penny was struck on a leftover steel planchette instead of the intended copper alloy, that would already make it an ultra-rare variety worth a fortune. But when that rarity is combined with other dramatic errors such as doubled dies, repunched mint marks, or off-cent, it strikes the value of the coin skyrockets into the tens of millions, as we see in the case of the specimen valued at $33 million. And what is fascinating is how these errors actually occur in the minting process, because dies that strike the coins are created by multiple impressions from a hub, and if during that process the alignment shifts even slightly, the inscriptions and details can double or even triple, producing a coin with doubled letters, numbers, or dates. And for example, on a 1945 wheat penny, a doubled die could make the numbers and the date look like they were shadowed or overlapped, creating an obvious error visible even to the naked eye. And collectors are drawn to these because they are rare, visually dramatic, and serve as a frozen snapshot of a mistake made at the mint. And in some cases, these doubled dies can affect the motto "I in God We Trust," or the word liberty, or even the portrait of Lincoln itself, giving the coin an odd, distorted look that collectors find fascinating. And when combined with other anomalies like a repunched mint mark, where the D or S mint mark was punched into the die more than once at slightly different angles, you get a coin that tells a story of how the mint operated at that time, relying on manual processes that left room for human error. And that is exactly what makes coins like the $3,001,945 penny so historically important and so captivating to collectors worldwide. But this coin did not just stop at having one error, because reports suggest it may also have been struck slightly off-center, meaning the design was not perfectly aligned on the planchette, leaving part of the coin blank. And when a coin shows both its date clearly and has an off-center strike, collectors consider it extremely desirable because it combines rarity with identifiable features. And in the case of the 1945 penny having such a combination of doubled die, repunched mint mark, and off-center strike already makes it a legendary piece, but to top it off, some experts believe that the coin was struck on a transitional planchette, possibly steel, or even a foreign coin blank, which makes it one of the only known examples in existence, and this is what has elevated its value to the $33 million range, making it one of the most valuable 1-cent coins ever recorded in numismatic history. And to appreciate this even further, we need to consider how many pennies were produced in 1945, because the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints struck over 1 billion pennies that year, and yet out of all those billions only a tiny handful were struck with mistakes, and only one has been verified with such a unique and dramatic set of errors, making it a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And it is exactly that level of rarity that drives collectors to pay unimaginable sums, because in the world of numismatics, rarity and uniqueness combined with demand determine value more than anything else, and demand for famous era coins like the 1945 penny is extremely high because collectors love the stories behind them and the possibility that they represent hidden treasures waiting to be discovered in ordinary places. And when you think about it, this is what makes coin collecting so exciting, because someone could literally pull a $33 million coin out of an old jar of change or inherit it without realizing its worth, and suddenly find themselves in possession of a fortune. And that has happened before with other famous pennies like the 1943 copper penny worth over $1 million, or the 1955 double die worth tens of thousands. And so the possibility that another undiscovered 1945 penny with unique errors may still be out there keeps the hunt alive and adds even more mystery to this story. Now let's dive deeper into the types of errors that could exist on a 1945 penny, because aside from the doubled dies and repunched mint marks, there are die cracks where the dies themselves fracture, leaving raised lines across the coin, and these die cracks can sometimes connect to form dramatic shapes, nicknamed by collectors like the spider web cracks or the extra eyebrows on Lincoln. And when you add such unusual features to a famous date, it can increase the appeal and value significantly. Then there are lamination errors where the metal flaked or peeled during the striking process, leaving jagged textures or missing layers on the surface of the coin. And these errors not only make the coin stand out, but also tell us about the quality of metal and the pressures the mint was under during wartime production, which adds to the historical narrative of the piece. And we also cannot forget struck-through errors where foreign materials such as grease cloth or even small metal shavings got between the die and the planchette at the time of striking, creating blank or distorted areas on the coin. And collectors love these because they provide a physical trace of what was happening inside the mint at the moment the coin was created. And if the $33,001,945 penny shows one or more of these unusual features in addition to its already dramatic set of errors, it would truly be unmatched in rarity and desirability. And another possible factor in its extraordinary value is its condition, because coin grading plays a huge role in determining price. And if this particular coin survived in mint state with full red luster intact after 80 years, then its rarity combined with high-grade condition makes it a holy grail for collectors, because even the most dramatic errors lose much of their value if they are scratched, heavily worn or damaged. But when a coin like this is preserved almost perfectly, it transcends ordinary numismatics and becomes an artifact that wealthy collectors or even museums will fight over to own, driving the price into the tens of millions. And this is why the 1945 penny has reached such a legendary status in the coin collecting community, because it represents the perfect storm of rarity, era, history, and condition all in one small copper coin. And as incredible as it sounds, this is not just about money, it is about the thrill of discovery and the stories coins carry, because each era tells us something about the processes and challenges of the mint at that time, and each rare survivor, like the $33 million penny, is a time capsule from the past and a symbol of how the smallest mistakes can sometimes lead to the biggest treasures. And this is why collectors dedicate their lives to searching through rolls of pennies, hunting in flea markets, and examining inherited collections, because you never know when the next legendary coin might be found. And as we think about this amazing 1945 penny, let's imagine the possibilities, because if this coin with its unique blend of errors is worth $33 million. Next, 1951's Wheat Penny USA coin. Today on this incredible journey into the fascinating world of rare coins where something as small and ordinary as a wheat penny can end up being worth life-changing money, and in this video we are going to talk about one of the most remarkable and exciting discoveries that has captured the imagination of collectors and treasure hunters around the world, the 1951's Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin that despite being minted in the millions has, in one extraordinary case, been valued at a staggering $12 million due to its combination of unusual minting errors, mistakes, and historical circumstances that turned a simple 1-cent piece into an iconic treasure that collectors dream of finding. And what makes this story even more fascinating is the fact that most people could easily overlook such a coin if they came across it in an old jar of pennies or inherited change collection, never realizing that the errors and tiny details on its surface are the very things that make it worth millions. So let us begin this story by first setting the stage in history, because 1951 was part of the post-World War II era when the United States economy was booming and coin production was continuing at a high pace to keep up with growing demand, and the San Francisco Mint, marked by the small s under the date on pennies, struck hundreds of millions of wheat cents that year. But in the process, as with many times in mint history, mistakes were made, and those mistakes would become opportunities for collectors decades later, because when it comes to rare pennies, errors are everything, and the 1951's penny is no exception. So how does a penny from 1951 become worth $12 million? The answer lies in the unique combination of errors, anomalies, condition, and rarity that sets one coin apart from the rest and turns it into something legendary. And in the case of this particular coin, we are talking about multiple types of errors all layered together, beginning with doubled dies, which occur when the coin die receives more than one impression from the hub slightly misaligned so that the letters, numbers, or designs appear doubled or tripled, and in a 1951's penny a doubled die could affect the date itself, making the numbers 1951 appear as if they had shadows behind them or thickened edges. And sometimes these doubled dies are even more dramatic when they affect the words liberty or I and God we trust on the obverse side of the coin, creating visible distortions that collectors love and value highly. But that's just one possibility, because another major error common in San Francisco Mint pennies of the era is the repunched mint mark, or RPM, where the S was punched more than once into the die, sometimes tilted slightly or overlapping with the first punch. And for collectors, these RPMs are like fingerprints of the minting process, showing human involvement and error in an age before automation corrected such mistakes. And when you combine a doubled die with a dramatic repunched mint mark, you already have something rare and valuable. But the coin that is valued at $12 million reportedly went even further, with additional striking anomalies such as being slightly off-center, meaning the design was not perfectly aligned with the blank planchet, leaving one edge of the coin narrower and one side showing extra blank space. And this kind of error adds to the visual appeal, because it is immediately obvious that the coin is not ordinary, and collectors prize such unique misalignments. Now let's think about another possibility, the wrong planchet error, which has occurred in other famous rare pennies like the 1943 copper or steel cents, where the coin was struck on a leftover piece of metal intended for another year or even another denomination. And imagine a 1951's penny struck not on the standard copper alloy planchet, but perhaps on a leftover silver dime planchet or a foreign coin blank, because the San Francisco Mint at times struck coins for other countries, and if a penny was mistakenly struck on a planchet of the wrong size or metal, its rarity would be astronomical, and when combined with other errors it could easily explain why this coin is valued in the 8 figures. And another factor to consider is the condition of the coin, because in numismatics condition is king, and a coin with dramatic errors but heavy wear is still interesting but may not reach record-breaking value, whereas a coin preserved in mint state with full red luster, nearly flawless surfaces, and strong strike detail can attract elite collectors and investors willing to pay millions for the best of the best. And the $12,001,951's penny is reported to be in such exceptional condition that it stands as a once-in-a-lifetime find, unlike anything else from that year. And this is what makes it so extraordinary, because out of hundreds of millions minted, only one or two could possibly exist in this combination of errors and condition, making it a unique artifact in American history. But beyond double dies, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, and wrong planches, there are also other errors that could factor into its value, such as die cracks, which are raised lines on the coin caused by fractures in the die, or lamination errors, where the metal flakes or peels during striking, leaving dramatic textures or missing pieces on the surface, and even struck-through errors where grease, cloth, or other debris gets pressed into the coin at the time of minting, leaving strange blank areas or imprints. And any of these errors, especially if large or obvious, can make a coin significantly more valuable. And when you have a coin like the 1951 penny with multiple major errors possibly layered together, you get something so unique that it becomes priceless to collectors. And that brings us to the most important part of the story: why collectors are willing to pay such unbelievable amounts for coins like this. And the answer is that it all comes down to rarity and demand, because collectors value coins not just for their metal, but for their stories, their mistakes, and their uniqueness. And when a coin like the 1951 penny tells a story of human error, historical context, and survival in perfect condition, it becomes more than money. It becomes history frozen in copper. And owning such a piece is like holding a piece of time that nobody else can ever have, which is why collectors bid millions to secure it. And we must also remember that discoveries like this inspire people everywhere to search through their own collections, because while the $12 million specimen is unique, there could be other valuable 1951 era pennies out there waiting to be discovered, and stories of people finding rare coins in old jars or inherited boxes continue to surface every year, keeping the excitement alive and making the treasure hunt real for ordinary people. So when we talk about the 1951 penny, we are not just talking about a piece of copper, we are talking about a symbol of the unexpected possibilities hidden in everyday objects, and a reminder that sometimes the smallest mistakes can create the biggest fortunes. And as we continue to imagine the different scenarios that could have created this coin, it is important to think about how these mistakes actually happened, because the San Francisco Mint in 1951 was still heavily reliant on manual processes, and every coin die was prepared by hand, which meant that mint marks were added manually, creating opportunities for repunching and misplacement, and dies could wear quickly or shift during the multiple hubbing process, leading to doubled or even tripled designs, and planches could be fed into presses improperly, leading to off-center strikes, clips, or even wrong metal usage. And in that environment, a handful of coins with dramatic errors slipping through quality control is not only possible but expected, and it is those survivors that now command astronomical value. And when one survives in pristine condition with multiple dramatic errors, it becomes something so unique that collectors compare it to famous masterpieces in art or historical artifacts in museums. And that is exactly why the 1951 penny has reached a valuation of $12 million. And what is even more exciting is the possibility that more like it could still exist undiscovered in the world, perhaps in someone's attic, tucked into an old coin album, or forgotten in a desk drawer, waiting for someone to recognize its value. And that is why so many collectors and treasure hunters are motivated to search through rolls of wheat pennies and carefully examine their coins under magnification, because the potential reward is unimaginable. And with every new discovery comes the thrill of knowing history has been made once again. So when we talk about the $12,001,951 penny, we are not only telling the story of one coin, but we are also reminding everyone that the world of numismatics is full of surprises. Last 1946 Wheat Penny USA coin. Today, as we dive deep into another fascinating story from the world of rare coins, where ordinary-looking pennies that people often overlook in their pockets, change jars, or family collections can actually turn out to be worth millions. And today's spotlight is on one of the most jaw-dropping discoveries in numismatic history, the 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny, that in its most extraordinary form has been valued at an unbelievable $76 million. And what makes this tale so incredible is the combination of rare minting mistakes, unusual anomalies, and conditions that turn this little copper coin from just 1 cent of face value into a record-breaking treasure that collectors would pay fortunes to own. And the best part is that most people might never realize how important these coins are, because to the untrained eye they look just like any other wheat cent. But for those who know what to look for, every small mistake and every strange detail can mean the difference between a common coin worth a penny, and an ultra-rare piece worth tens of millions of dollars. So let's take a journey back to 1946, when the United States was transitioning out of the World War II era and coinage was returning to more stable materials after the emergency use of steel in 1943, and during this time the mint produced hundreds of millions of wheat cents using primarily copper alloy planches. But the massive production combined with the minting technology of the day and human involvement meant that errors were bound to slip through the cracks, and some of those errors would turn out to be so rare and so dramatic that decades later collectors would fight to obtain them, and one particular 1946 wheat penny stood out from the rest, rising to the astonishing valuation of $76 million because of a mind-blowing combination of factors that make it one of the most legendary coins in existence. So what kinds of errors could possibly transform a small copper coin into such a valuable treasure? Well, let's begin with the double die error, one of the most famous and sought-after mistakes in coin collecting history, which happens when the design die receives more than one impression from the hub slightly misaligned each time, resulting in letters, numbers and images appearing doubled or even tripled. And in the case of a 1946 wheat penny, an extreme double die could affect the date itself, making the numbers 1946 look bold, thick and shadowed as if there were ghost images behind them, and collectors go crazy for such dramatic errors, especially when they affect the words "I" and "God," "We trust" or "Liberty," which are the most visible areas on the obverse, and such a double die would already put the coin into the thousands, or even hundreds of thousands. But in the $76 million specimen, it didn't stop there, because this coin is believed to combine multiple major errors into a single piece, making it not just rare but truly one of a kind. And another dramatic error to consider is the repunched mint mark, or RPM, because in 1946 mint marks were still added to coin dies manually, and this often resulted in them being punched slightly crooked multiple times or in slightly different positions, creating visible overlapping S or D mint marks depending on the location. And for collectors, RPMs are like signatures of mint worker mistakes preserved in metal forever, and when paired with a double die error, the uniqueness multiplies further, increasing the coin's desirability and value. And then comes the possibility of off-center strikes, where the coin design is not properly aligned on the blank planchette, leaving part of the coin design shifted to one side and creating a wide blank crescent of space on the edge, which immediately makes the coin visually distinct and adds to its charm and rarity. And imagine a 1946 penny with a strong double die RPM error and also off-center struck at 15 to 30%, because something like that would be nearly unheard of. And beyond just off center strikes, there are wrong planchette errors, where a coin is accidentally struck on a piece of metal meant for another denomination or even another country, since mints sometimes produced foreign coinage. And if a 1946 wheat penny were struck on a dime planchette or a leftover wartime steel planchette or even a foreign blank, the resulting coin would be wildly rare and valuable. And adding yet another layer, there are clipped planchette errors, where a small portion of the coin's edge is missing due to overlapping during the blank cutting process, and lamination errors, where the metal flakes or peels, leaving dramatic raised or missing patches on the coin's surface. And then there are die cracks, cuts and struck through errors, where foreign materials like grease or cloth got pressed into the coin at the time of striking, leaving unusual imprints, all of which create unique, one-of-a-kind pieces, and collectors prize them, especially when they appear in combination. And the $76 million 1946 penny is reported to feature an unbelievable mixture of such anomalies, making it the pinnacle of mint era collecting. But errors alone do not tell the whole story, because condition plays a massive role in determining value. And while many error coins survive in circulated or worn condition, the true gems are those that remain in mint state, preserved for decades with full red copper luster, original surfaces and minimal marks. And the $76 million example reportedly falls into this category, making it the finest known of its type, and rarity in such condition is what pushes prices to unimaginable levels, because wealthy collectors and institutions compete to own the absolute best. And once a unique coin like this is discovered and certified by experts, its value skyrockets to legendary proportions. And beyond the physical attributes, there is also the story behind the coin, because every great numismatic treasure has a story that fuels its allure. And in the case of the 1946 Penny. We must consider the historical context because this was the first full year after the end of World War II and America was entering a new era. Coins struck during this time carry emotional and historical weight, and when combined with incredible minting errors, they become symbols of resilience, transition, and history itself. And owning such a piece is like holding a frozen moment from that era in your hand, which is why collectors are willing to pay fortunes for it. And what makes this story even more exciting is that many people could still unknowingly have valuable 1946 pennies in their collections or tucked away in jars, because while the $76 million specimen is unique, there are still other valuable era varieties from that year worth hundreds or thousands, and this is why collectors carefully inspect their 1946 wheat pennies under magnification, looking for double dies, RPMs, off-center strikes, clips, laminations, die cracks, and other anomalies, because each one represents the possibility of a hidden fortune, and the allure of the treasure hunt is one of the greatest joys of coin collecting. And so when we look at this incredible $76 million coin, we are not just looking at a piece of copper, but at a symbol of how human error and chance combined with history can create something priceless and unforgettable. And the fascination grows when we imagine how such a coin could have slipped through quality control at the mint and entered circulation unnoticed, because in 1946 minting technology was far less advanced than it is today, and human involvement at every step meant opportunities for mistakes to occur. And since hundreds of millions of coins were being produced, it was easy for a handful of mistakes to go undetected and survive for decades until finally being recognized by sharp-eyed collectors. And this is why coin collecting is so endlessly fascinating, because it reminds us that history and fortune can be found in the smallest everyday objects if we know what to look for. And as we think about this $76 million penny, it is almost surreal to realize that something designed to be worth only a cent could transform into a treasure worth more than most mansions, yachts, or even private jets. And yet it is real, because the world of numismatics values rarity, uniqueness, and story above all else. And when all those elements combine into one coin, the result is nothing short of legendary. And the inspiring part is that anyone could be the next person to discover something like this, because treasures are still out there waiting in coin rolls, collections, attics, and family inheritances. And stories of people finding rare pennies among ordinary change continue to surface and fuel the passion for the hunt. And so as we marvel at the story of the 1946 penny worth $76 million, let us also be reminded of the importance of paying attention to details, of learning about minting errors, and of staying curious.